Good morning, everyone. I think I'm between you and lunch, so I'd better keep myself to time here, so I'm going to kick off. Everyone at the back, good to go? I'm taking that as a good thumbs up. Yes, fantastic, thank you. Welcome, and thanks for joining me for a talk with Mimecast for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be talking about humans and AI. I think a common theme through these events these days. My name's Justin White. I'm a senior sales engineer at Mimecast, and it's my pleasure to deliver this talk today. So, it won't come as any great surprise to you, but there's a lot of research that is done around data breaches, and Stanford University last year put pen to paper and confirmed a lot of thoughts that 88% of data breaches involve human error at some point, and I'm sure that that's something probably that a lot of you have to contend with in your daily lives and in your organizations. Alongside that, both Mimecast, but if you look out on the open internet, just looking at threats and how threats come about, the attack landscape, you'll also notice that email is widely reported to be involved in 91% of cyber attacks, either at the start or involved at somewhere along the lines. So as we have built our businesses, there's no sense really that anybody is using less of email, despite some additional electronic communication tools coming about. We don't see the need for email reducing in any way at all. In fact, we've seen it increasing. And many organizations have built email as confirmation and notification processes into their own business processes. So it's hard to really see a day where email won't actually be required. So when we look at our users, our end users, but also importantly our ecosystems full of those valued partners, those suppliers to our organizations, we need to help organizations, and we need to help individuals, the human elements, to be able to use that email in a safe and satisfactory way. Because unfortunately, as you well know, partly because it's reported, but also over the internet, but also the reality of your own experiences and the sorts of reports that Mimecast produces as a cyber risk vendor, that email has to be treated fairly carefully. You need to have some kind of insight into exactly what you're actually looking for. And whether an email is good, bad, or indifferent. And this can be somewhat perplexing at times. We have wide-ranging end users, all who have a variety of behaviors when it comes to that electronic communication, all that are can put our organization at risk when maybe they treat that email with not the attitude that maybe we would hope that they would do. And so it's important for us to be able to help and actually get at the point of risk of when that human is actually about to make a decision on whether or not to interact with that email or not. So we've known this. I'm not telling you anything sort of very, very startling at this point. This experience, this information that is widely known. Your experiences working in your organizations will have told you this a long time ago. But we've now introduced the era of AI and artificial intelligence, and it becomes important for us to be able to cope with AI because the challenges have somewhat increased. But when we look at AI, and once again, you can get this information from the internet, from your own research, But there are some very good reasons to be using AI. AI is a benefit. Organizations are developing their own value around what AI can deliver. They're either refining existing processes or actually innovating brand new processes to really be able to push the boundaries. So that we need to be able to have this component, and we need to be able to have AI in our lives. The unfortunate reality, and as a cyber risk vendor, you'd expect us to have and understand this attack surface and understand this new communication method. Attackers start to look for any opportunity, any avenue to gain a threat or to be able to design a threat in a new way. So AI is a very useful tool, but it has already been taken advantage of by threat actors as well. So how are those threat actors, what are they doing? Why has this come about that they can take advantage of it? So it doesn't take long, whether you're proficient with analyzing the dark web, whether you see this just by picking up information that is reported over the internet as well. There are a number of tools that are already becoming available to those threat actors. Wolf GPT has built a set of capabilities for threat actors to easily be able to develop different types of malware, different types of compromises through their AI models. We also see tools such as Worm GPT, where you've got chatbots, and you're starting to see this maturing to an extent where there's a service starting to orientate and start to be delivered. So the threat actor themselves doesn't have to spend a lot of time learning this stuff, and they can consume this information very easily. And then the last one, is XXGPT, the actual service and the shared risk model between the threat actor and the threat actor providing the actual tools for them to do the development. You even hear about profit share capabilities, about what is a good attack and what isn't. And that is all within the capabilities of the threat actor landscape and what they can design. So with that in mind, it then becomes, and the tools that are evidently out there, it then becomes one of the roles of the cyber risk vendors to start being able to look at how can you spot what is going on. And if I'd start to just give a couple of examples, at first sight, we're expecting those end users to be able to pick out from their sea of emails and electronic communication that goes on throughout their daily lives, exactly what the good ones are that they can rely on, and what the bad ones are. So this one, for instance, I can tell you, in actual fact, that's relatively benign. That's from one of the pre-sales directors at Mimecast, and they're expecting an action. So I would want to be confidently engaging with that particular email. Start to look at something a little bit more sophisticated. Some of you will probably be aware of the gift card scams that have been created out there. It's coming from a senior person proposing to be the CEO of Microsoft. It's asking for some help. Quite often end users would say, oh, right, okay, I need to engage. I'm going to engage and help my CEO do something here. But when we look behind the actual scenes, this is actually designed by an AI model. Very simply, you can give it the prompt of who the CEO of Microsoft is, and then ask it to write a phishing email from the CEO of Microsoft to persuade an employee for what they want them to do. Another one starts to maybe look a little bit more on the actual idea of how we engage with the tools that we have to use on a daily basis. So those tools, whether they be Microsoft, whether it be Google, are often asking us to click on links and click on in areas so that we can confirm what is going on, and so we can confirm our identities. And here we start to see that this would look, at first sight, if I was, wanting to engage with this, to be quite a plausible email that I was going to actually action. But quickly we start to see that creating a phishing email to target Office 365 users, write it in HTML, and include a Microsoft logo as well. So there's just a few examples there of kind of how those end users are expected to actually engage and what they're expected to be able to interpret with their eyes. So how does a cyber risk vendor such as Mimecast actually help in the area, and how do we implement our AI models? So there's no doubt about it, from our point of view, AI is a complementary technology to an existing detection stack that we already have. We don't see a world of either AI or an existing technology stack. We have the benefits of getting the advantage of both types of detections. AI requires quite a lot of training. For those of you who have implemented or even played with your own AI models, you're probably gauging that there are errors, and you can force errors and you can force things through the AI model which might give you an indication that this isn't what it actually turns out to be. But at scale, this becomes important for us to recognize. Threats constantly evolve. So the actual threats and what I need this AI model to do and help me with is very rarely ever static. We need to be able to stay ahead of those threats. And efficacy is a balance. What do I actually want out of this? Because these are tunable parameters, and depending on the service and actually how you want to consume that service, the responsibility to tune it could either fall on yourselves or it can fall on the actual organization providing that service. So to get the model working, there are a number of factors. Purely from a point of view of learning, and those of you who have built LLMS systems will realize that you have to provide a lot of data. Most organizations are not going to have quite the view of threat data and events that might be required in order to be able to keep that model and get that model to do a good job of work for us, to get that model to have a low level of false positives, and to get the organization confident in exactly what it is doing. So Mimecast is fortunate in its position and the infrastructure that it has and the amount of email that it sees to be able to provide you and provide the machine learning models with a very good learning environment. The countries here represent where we actually have our data centers and our services can be run from. It could be where your account is actually operated from. And the 7 billion is giving you an example of the number of detections and events that we're seeing on a daily basis. So from that, what that can infer to you is that we have got a good understanding of trends. We do see what is going through the environments. We are able to feed our machine learning models, our AI platforms with the right sort of data to keep them accurate. And when we look at this into a little bit more detail, what are the sort of events? What generates those events? We're averaging somewhere just under 200 million events on a daily basis as new events. But there are things that change and things that can make this go up. So in March 2022, you'll see that was caused by the unfortunate invasion of Ukraine by Russia. In September, it's a smaller slither. 2022, unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth II passes away. And so these geopolitical events that start to occur, it becomes very clear, and we regularly see upticks in the amount of events and attacks that are going on in line with those different geopolitical events. If we move into 2023, in the May timeframe, there were a number of events that were taking place: controversial elections in Turkey, drone attacks on the Kremlin, and Imran Khan was arrested. The G7 summit took place in Japan. And these are all different examples that threat actors will continuously take advantage of, and we don't see that changing anytime soon. August, Imran Khan was convicted, Donald Trump was indicted, and the Russian Wagner Group plane crashed, generating more in October. The Speaker of the US House of Representatives was voted out, and Hamas attacks Israel. So I think you get the idea. The actual changing landscape can be affected very easily by events that are occurring around the world. So what does Mimecast see on this? So if you were looking at your platform and the statistics and what we look at, we start to see that there are sometimes a lot of grey areas between the different detections that are being made. For example, phishing is often front of mind. Business email compromise is what organizations feel. Well, that I've got to address that. That's a particular pain point to me. But you've got to recognize that can actually happen at different parts of the layer. Spam bots and spam engines can send out a lot of phishing mails and a lot of business email compromise. So we may have to be able to detect those types of attacks as soon as we see it at the spam layer, or we may be detecting it further down the stack at a later date. Phishing attacks are becoming increasingly sophisticated. They're very good at obfuscating themselves. They're very good at being hidden down protracted HTML routes, which are using legitimate services. Impersonation attacks are of either spoofing of our domain, spoofing of identities, targeting of particular personnel in an organization, because the attacker has gone through some kind of reconnaissance phase in order to be able to identify that. And you can see that the other couples there, but that broadly is in general terms, represents the order of magnitude of what Mimecast sees and what Mimecast detects. When we go back and we see this will be interesting if this plays. If I do that, oh yeah, there we go. So what are we actually wanting to see against this? This is just a 90-day window of showing the changes in the CVEs. So a CVE is a common way of actually seeing and recording what those threats are. But over time, there's something called dwell time. So the longer time goes on as things change, my AI model, my machine learning model, can kind of go stale if it isn't being fed. And as you'll see, some of these CVEs are very, very old. It only takes an attacker to change one very small part of it, and they repurpose something that has been seen for a long time ago. So what this is telling us is that the platform that you are going to rely on needs to be able to kind of self-learn. It needs to be able to give some kind of indication of when that data is going stale, or when the actual false positive rates, false negative rates are getting to a level that aren't sufficient, shouldn't be contended with. So let's talk a little bit more about Mimecast. So Mimecast and the advanced phishing detection model is part of the core detection stack. It sits within URL Protect. URL Protect, as part of the Targeted Threat Protection Suite, delivered by Mimecast, was designed in the early 2000s and has been refined over time. It's a sophisticated detection engine for the latest phishing, business email compromise attacks that some of your organizations may be having to go through. So when we looked at this, we said, well, why don't we just give all of our URLs to the advanced phishing detection stack? And we did this through pilots and tests, but in actual fact, that delivered a lower level of accuracy than we were comfortable with and that we wanted to bring to market. So our understanding and the resources and our ability to actually have the existing detection stack of the gateway that is already in place actually then enables us to have what we call a pre-filter and make sure that we're focusing and we identify the power of AI and ML on those most difficult of attacks, those most difficult of messages which maybe have passed through or sailed through other attacks in the platform or other checks in the platform. And this is how we've actually risen, and this delivers us the accuracy that we're actually needing. So when we look at the phishing detections, the things that can quite often impact organizations is the zero-day type attack, the emerging phishing attacks. And for a period of time, we can say, right, we'll just focus this all on the email side of things. But I imagine many of you, your organizations, have adopted or are continuously adopting the collaboration type platforms. You want the benefits of the cloud. You want the benefits for your organizations and your employees who are often working remotely, sometimes in the office, sometimes in other parts of the world, to be able to share the intelligence and the data that your organization is producing. So, as well as email protection, the protection of Teams, the protection of SharePoint, the protection of OneDrive, those collaboration tools becomes vitally important to your organization as well. Another example of AI, and if I didn't say it previously, that URL Protect side that I covered there, machine learning models are used throughout the URL Protect service. Another example of how Mimecast implements and uses machine learning is for login pages. So those links that your users are actually sent, and then they may actually be enticed or encouraged to click on, and takes them to a login page. We use a machine learning model called computer vision. And computer vision is actually then analyzing the parts of that login page. Is the logo a legitimate Microsoft logo? Is the certificate that is being used current, or invalid, or just expired? Is the actual object that is on the screen, does it meet the actual requirements that you have to have, and that is recorded within a database that we can confirm is that the legitimate sizes that Microsoft would use? Is the text detection, is the font that is being used correct? And all of this can be used in an AI and machine learning model to be able to inform whether this is enticing a compromised user to log into a site which isn't a Microsoft site at all and would probably give up their login credentials. Another area that we have is, and this is where a lot of the AI and machine learning has changed. Mimecast has been using machine learning models since the early 2000s, but most of it has been on the back end of our platform in order to gain efficiencies of how that platform works. But a lot of vendors now and a lot of capability is to say, well, we've got this mailbox. Help me model the actual mailbox. How can I know? How can I know what's an anomaly to normal behavior, and what should be prevented? Help my end users at the point of risk of when they're about to decide to engage with that email message or not. So Mimecast has CyberGraph. CyberGraph is built on an identity graph database, We're collecting over 200 attributes about every single model. We build our machine learning model from those 200 attributes. And we, interestingly enough, can combine certain attributes from our grid-level threat intelligence with the actual model that we see from the end-user mailbox. And we do that for every single user. That then enables us to put up what we call a dynamic banner, so that we help the end user at the point of risk when they're about to engage with that email or not. And we can give them some fairly clear direction, clear color coding, clear wording in the actual banner to say whether or not this is an acceptable thing for them to do or not. It also covers a couple of other areas. Trackers. Trackers are a common technique that attackers will use to build reconnaissance and build some kind of familiarity with that target. Where are they in the world? What's their IP address? Are they responding just to the emails that are being sent? And then the other one is misaddressed. So the misaddressed side of things is where someone is maybe slightly rushed, putting together an email, sending it out. It looks to be a similar address to someone on your LDAP directory, but in actual fact goes to someone on a public or outside of your organization. And so we can cope and identify that and actually recognize whether that is an error and then decide and give them some breathing room, hold the message and say, did you mean to actually send it to that address? So those are the three current implementations. We're building and delivering those benefits on the actual anomalies to the AI mailbox based on the metadata of the message. Fairly shortly, you will see us move into being able to analyze the body of the message and being able to analyze the attachments within the message as well. And that will give us further insight into other attributes, often around DLP, often around emotionally charged language that we want to be able to trigger and take an action on. So I'm coming into the last slide of the presentation. And so Mimecast has the benefit of having an existing detection stack. We haven't seen a world where we would go one way or the other and close down the existing. There's a very big complementary requirement between threat intelligence from our existing platform and utilizing AI and machine learning for where it's good, where we can get the biggest return on that investment to protect end users. And that means that we need that platform area. We need to be able to recognize when we want to refresh the data, when that data is going stale. We may want to enrich the model from not only the AI side of things, but also from the other threat intelligence that we get from across our platform. We firmly believe there will always be a role for a SOC analyst, an analyst of some sort, to be able to put a real pair of eyes. The days of actually having a 100% AI model completely autonomous is not with us at this point in time. So you do need to have the process behind there which can have human intervention. We combine data and TI. So we can deliver you the amount of data to do the learning, and we have the threat intelligence from the rest of the platform that is giving you as an organization the benefits of not only your own threat posture, what is being said at the grid level, but then more importantly, what the threat intelligence of our security data scientists are looking at and what they're analyzing as well. And that helps to then deliver an AI model that is a good return on investment, delivers you the protection, and helps to protect your end users at the point of risk, as well as being an operational efficiency on the back end of the system. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an inkling into to Mimecast, our use of AI, and the importance of machine learning models for the future. If anybody would like to chat further, please come and find us on the stand. Thank you very much.